Good day, class. So for today's lesson, we will discuss Module 6 of our second quarter titled Rainfall-Induced Geological Hazards. At the end of this module, we can discuss different geological hazards, analyze the causes of geological hazards, recognize signs of impending geological hazards, interpret geological maps, and apply mitigation strategies to prevent loss of lives and properties. Rainfall-induced geological hazards. Aside from earthquakes and volcanic eruptions, there are geologic conditions that may pose a hazard to lives and properties when exposed to heavy or prolonged rain. Rainfall-induced hazard simply means hazard caused by rainfall, specifically heavy rainfall or yung matinding pag-ulan na may kasamang kulog at kidlat at malakas na hangin. So in this module, two of these common geological hazards we will discuss: landslides and sinkholes. They become a hazard because of topographical composition of land. So topography or topographical composition of land refers to the physical structures of an area of land. These features typically include natural formation such as mountains, rivers, lakes, and valleys. Man-made features also such as roads, dams, and cities may also be included. Topography often records the various elevation of an area using a topographical map. So it is quite linked to our topic for today about landslides and sinkholes. So how does heavy rain forms? More heavy rain is one of the signs of climate change. As the atmosphere warms, evaporates from soils, plants, lakes, and oceans. So when this additional water vapor condenses into precipitation, it leads to heavier rain that can cause hazard like floods, landslides, sinkholes, etc. So we will now discuss the first type of rainfall-induced hazards, the landslides. A landslide is the movement of rock, earth, or debris down a sloped section of land. Landslides are caused by rain, earthquakes, volcanoes, or other factors that make the slope unstable. So according to United States Geological Survey or USGS, landslide can be initiated in slopes already on the verge of movement by rainfall, changes in water level, flood, streams, erosion, and changes in groundwater. A landslide occurs because of the force of gravity, because greater than either friction or the interval strength of rocks, soil, or sediment. The amount of friction between a deposit of rock or soil and the slope that is rest or place large rule, and when landslides happen, anything can be destroyed. Geologists, scientists who study the physical formation of Earth, sometimes describes landslides as one type of mass wasting. A mass wasting is any downward movement in which Earth's surface is worn away. Other type of mass wasting includes rockfalls and the flow of shore deposits called alluvium. In addition to this, geologists are also in the forefront of preventing and mitigating damage from natural hazards and disasters such as, for example, volcanoes, tsunamis, and other physical weathering like erosion, landslides, and mass wasting. One of the mass movement related to landslides. Rockfalls happens in accordance to mass wasting and in the bodies of water like rivers, oceans, and flowing streams. Alluvium a deposit of clay, salt, and sand and gravel left by flowing streams in a river or lake, commonly producing fertile soil. Near populated areas, landslides present major hazards to people and property. Landslides cause an estimated 25 to 50 deaths and 3.5 billion in damage each year in United States. So in addition to this, if a certain area is overpopulated and it is located at the top of a mountain or hillsides, landslides soon to happen because of applied load by populated area and a saturated soil. Near populated areas, landslides present major hazards to people and property. Landslides cause an estimated 25 to 50 deaths and $3.5 billion in damage each year in the United States. In addition, if a certain area is overpopulated and it is located at the top of a mountain or hillsides, the applied load by populated areas are the common causes of landslide. Landslides are common to happen mainly because of the load and gravity exerted by houses and other infrastructures. Infrastructures causes the soil to collapse or break apart. Weak rocks and soil that make up a sloping area to erode or slide. What causes landslide? Landslides have three major causes: geology, morphology, and human activity. Geology refers to the characteristics of the material itself. The earth or rock might be weak or fractured, or different layers may have different strength and stiffness. Otherwise, if a land is saturated, it is considered as prone to landslide. In addition, geology focuses on determining the strength and weaknesses of the foundation of the soil, rocks, or the whole Earth's surface. We all know that every layers of soil have different properties that can cause different stiffness that may affect stability, and if the soil have combined with heavy rain, thus it will become loosely consolidated properties, or what they call this a saturated soil, that will weaken the whole foundation of Earth surfaces, that it will result to mass movement or landslides. Next we have morphology. Morphology refers to structures of the land. For example, slopes that lost their vegetation to fire or drought are more vulnerable to landslide. Vegetation holds soil in place, and without a root system of trees, bushes, and other plants, the land is more likely to slide away. Another example is deforestation. Deforestation plays a big role in relation to mass movement or in relation to the structure of the land or morphology. Because of the deforestation, the soil will become increasingly fragile, leaving the area more vulnerable to natural disasters such as landslides, sinkholes, and floods. A classic morphological cause of landslide is erosion, or weakening of earth due to water. In April 1983, the town of Thistle, Utah experienced a devastating landslide brought on by heavy rains and rapidly melting snow. A mass of earth eventually totaling 305 meters wide, 61 meters thick, and 1.6 kilometers long, 1,000 feet wide, 200 feet thick, and 1 mile long in equivalent, slide across the nearby Spanish Fork River, damming it and severing railroad and highway lines. The landslide was the costliest in US history, costing over $400 million in damage and destroying Tessel, which remains an evacuated ghost town today. In morphological cause of landslide, erosion as a type of weathering is also a major cause, and it is a powerful process of weakening debris and earth material of the surface of the slope. A landslide is any geologic process in which gravity causes rock, soil, artificial fill, or a combination of the three to move down a slope. Several things can trigger landslides, including the slow weathering of rocks, as well as soil erosion, earthquakes, and even volcanic activity. Human activities such as agriculture and construction can increase the risk of a landslide. Irrigation, deforestation, excavation, and water leakage are some of the common activities that can help destabilize or weaken a slope. So in addition, a landslide is a result of the failure of materials holding together the hill slope and is driven by the force of gravity. There are many ways to describe a landslide. The nature of landslide movement and the type of material involved are two of the most common. Landslide movement. There are several ways of describing how a landslide moves. This includes falls, topples, transitional slides, lateral spreads, and flows. In falls and topples, heavy blocks of material fall after separating from a very steep slope or cliff. Boulders tumbling down a slope would be a fall or topple. A fall. A fall, in addition, is a mass movement with a rapid collapse of material off a steep slope cliff, as you can see in our image. Fall usually consists of a material in a free fall where it bounces and rolls down to collect at the bottom of the slope. Next is topple. In addition, topple is a forward rotations of material out of a slope. This kind of movement usually occurs due to erosion at the base of the slope, causing the land to lose strength and eventually topple. In transitional slides, surface material is separated from more stable underlying layer of a slope. An earthquake may shake the loosened top layer of soil from the harder earth beneath in this type of landslides. Next, we have a lateral spread or flow. It is the movement of material sideways or laterally. This happens when a powerful force, such as an earthquake, makes the ground move quickly like a liquid. In addition, a flow is the descent of material which has been saturated by water, making it heavier and causing debris or mud flow, sometimes called lahar flow. Landslide material. A landslide can involve rock, soil, vegetation, water, or some combination of all these. A landslide caused by a volcano can also contain hot volcanic ash and lava from the eruption. A landslide high in the mountains may have snow and snowmelt. Volcanic landslides, also called lahars, are among the most devastating type of landslides. The largest landslide in recorded history took place after the 1980 eruption of Mount St. Helens in the U.S. state of Washington. The resulting flow of ash, rock, soil, and vegetation and water with a volume of about 2.9 cubic kilometers or 0.7 cubic miles covered an area of 62 square kilometers, 24 square miles in equivalent. So we can say that a landslide is a mass movement of rock fragments, soil, and debris downslope. This can weaken the slopes of the volcano, leading to a landslide or cause a volcanic earthquake, which is an earthquake induced by the pressure and stress of volcanic activity. Volcanic earthquakes can trigger landslides. Other factors. Another factor that might be important for describing landslide is the speed of the movement. Some landslides move at many meters per second, while others creep along at a centimeter or two a year. The amount of water, ice, or air in the earth should also be considered. Some landslides include toxic gases from deep in the earth expelled by volcanoes. Some landslides, called mudslides, contain a high amount of water and move very quickly. Complex landslides consist of a combination of different material or movement types. In addition, fast-moving flows of mud and rock called debris flow or mudslides are among the most numerous and dangerous type of landslides. Mudslides are particularly dangerous to life and property because of their high speeds and destructive forces of their flow. Next, we have sinkholes. Sinkholes are caused by erosion. They may appear suddenly and have devastating consequences. Sinkholes are cavities in the ground, as you can see in our image, that form when water erodes an underlying rock layer. Two types of sinkholes exist. One forms when the roof of a cave collapses and exposes the underground cavern. The second type forms when water dissolves the rock underneath soil and creates an underground chasm without a rock to support it. The soil layer collapses and creates a hole on the surface. Sinkholes have both natural and human caused. Land made of a soft underground rock layer such as rock salt around the Dead Sea or limestone in Mexico, Yucatan Peninsula are often riddled with sinkholes since the rock layer is easily dissolved. Man-made sinkholes are created when the city development compromises the structural integrity of underlying rock. Roads, buildings, and other types of construction may cause water to collect in certain areas and wash away the supporting rock layer, especially at low sea level and after a heavy rainfall. Another examples of man-made sinkholes is by collapse of or broken of sewer and drain pipes, or broken septic tank. Improperly compacted soil after excavation work and buried trash, logs, and other debris might tend to lead to sinkholes. Signs of impending landslide or sinkholes. Signs of impending landslides and sinkholes are visible in areas where there are buildings, bridges, roads, stationary objects, inland water bodies, or vegetations. For landslide, here are signs of an imminent danger. Springs, water seepage, or water-saturated grounds in areas that are not typically wet. So this explains that a seep or a flush is a moist or wet place where matter, usually groundwater, reaches the Earth. Seeps mostly occur in lower elevation areas because water runs downhill that may cause landslides. Next, a soil that loosens and moves away from foundation. Transport or loosened soil particles by overland flow occurs during times of flood, when more and faster moving water is available to carry earth material. Eventually, mass movements like landslides likely to happen. Next, new cracks or unusual bulge on cemented ground or walls. So, new bulge or cracks are appearing at an increasing rate on the sidewalks. Is a bright example. This may indicate that unusual stresses from the slope cracks start appearing on soil foundation, and other structures like street posts starts tilting, indication of sinkholes or landslides. Next, underground utility lines that are broken due to vibrations or tremors from surface of the ground. For example, such as shaking during an earthquake or other sudden change in stress condition. Thus, irregular settlement may happen and may break underground utility lines due to tremors or vibrations of the ground. Next, buildings, poles, walls, and fences that are leaning. A leaning building, poles, fence, and walls are usually indication of mass movement like erosion, landslides, sinkholes, etc. And the angle of the lean grows progressively acute as the soil around the pole, buildings, fences, and walls erodes or shifts farther. Next, sudden rapid flow of creek water carrying more salted water. Streams at the creek carry most of the water that goes from land to the sea or river valleys that are usually saturated or loosely consolidated. When stream channels fill with more salted water, excessive flows onto the surface leads to rapid erosion and landslides. Next, for sinkholes, there are signs of an imminent danger in groundwater that does not provide the same amount and quality as before or has become cloudy, acidic, silted, or soiled. Another example for this is by the presence of suspended matter such as clay and silt causes a bitter taste of groundwater. These all aspects are related to contamination of underground water because of sinkholes. Signposts or poles that are suddenly leaning, slanting, sagging, slanting, or bent. A leaning of signposts or poles are usually indication of sinkholes or landslides. Ponds that have recently formed or puddles that grow or have never disappeared. Pond is an inland body of standing water, either natural or man-made, that is smaller than a lake, while puddle is a small pool of water, usually on a path or road. And for some instances, if a pond or puddle, for example, becomes bigger in size, or sag pond newly forming, then it is a bright indication of a disaster like sinkholes. In some cases, vulnerability of an area to landslide or sinkholes can be measured and validated more accurately through scientific instruments. For landslide, in areas that are susceptible to landslides, an ABNI level or laser range finder equipped with tiltmeter is used to measure the slope angle, soil compaction, and soil strength of an area. The data determine the level of risk to landslides. The same data can also be used to future terrain alterations or guide to urban planners plan a safer structural development in any area. In addition, ABNI levels are made with square tubular bodies so that they may also be used to directly measure the slopes of plane surfaces by simply placing the body of the level on the surface, adjusting the level, and then reading the angle of the scale. Then, if there is a sudden movement and changes with the angle of elevation together with the slope of a land or hills, then it is an indication of landslides or sinkholes. For sinkholes are validated using ground penetrating radar or GPR to provide images of subsurface ground. It can detect the type of objects, changes in material, and voids and cracks under a layer of soil. Good penetration is achieved in soft layers or porous materials such as dry, sandy soils or massive dry materials such as limestone. The measurement can reach up to 15 meters. This is why the GPR is a good tool in determining whether sinkholes may occur or not because of the relatively accurate determination of the soft ground underlying the ground surface. The GPR has been widely used in mapping sinkholes in Bohol and Cebu City, where both showed the presence of sinkholes during an earthquake event happened in year 2013. In addition, ground penetrating radar or GPR is the best way to detect sinkholes. A GPR survey is a low-risk method to determine the location of sinkholes. This can form part of a risk assessment to check the integrity of the ground or to determine the extent of voids or cavities in the ground. Areas that have the highest vulnerability to rainfall-induced landslides have already been identified by the MGB or Mines and Geoscience Board of the Department of Environment and Natural Resources or DENR through their geohazard mapping and assessment program. This program is an ongoing priority project of the DENR designed to provide accurate and detailed profile of the terrain of the Philippine soils. The maps generated from this project have combined landslides and flooding hazards, as these two are the most common geological issues in sloping areas during rainfall. In addition, landslides are becoming more prevalent in the country lately because of onslaught of typhoons like Yolanda that are primarily caused by the climate change. As a vital environment issue, the DENR encourages the public to take precautions in their respective areas with the use of geohazard mapping, which serves to identify various geological features and associated hazards and inform the local officials about the susceptibility of their communities. Maps on probabilities of sinkholes, on the other hand, have not been generated yet. However, after recent incidents and discoveries of large sinkholes in other countries, the DENR is encouraging provincial or municipal initiatives of conduct soil drilling, testing using GPR to detect any possible areas for sinkholes. In addition, the risks related to sinkholes pose a significant threat to humans, infrastructures, and natural resources. It is important to identify the sinkholes-prone areas in order to mitigate or prevent damage and losses caused by sinkholes. Using technological advancement like GPR, and soil drilling may further help to develop reliable, sustainable management plans for the prevention of the catastrophic collapse of buildings, structures, and other related geohazard disasters. So the map shown in our figure shows areas where underground cavities can form and catastrophic sinkholes can happen. Areas of evaporites, the slush-covered areas, salt gypsum and anhydrite, and carbonate orange areas, limestone and dolomite. Evaporite rocks underlie about 35 to 40% of the US, through in many areas they are buried at great depths. Once vulnerability and exposure to geohazard is determined and validated through scientific tools, visible signs and maps, communities are advised to take precautionary measures to prevent unnecessary damage to lives and properties. What should I do before landslide if I live in an area at risk from landslides or mudslides? Learn about local emergency response and evacuation plans. Talk to everyone in your household about what to do if a landslide occurs. Create and practice an evacuation plan for your family and your business. Assemble and maintain an emergency preparedness kit. Become familiar with the land around you, where you live and work, so that you understand your risk in different situations. Watch patterns of stormwater drainage on slopes near your home, especially where runoff water converges. A prompt warning to the community to evacuate is very necessary to have a shelter or proper evacuation center. Knowing how to prepare and be ready for landslides before, during, and after they occur are very important, so it is important or necessary to communicate immediately with your family about it. Having an emergency kit is an important step to prepare and protect your household for unforeseen events. An emergency kit is essential for short-term survival, providing vital items for you and your family or household. It is a good idea to always keep your kit in a handy place known to everyone in the household. Landslides generally happen in areas where they have occurred in the past. So, assess the watch patterns of storm water drainage on slopes near your home, especially where runoff water converge. What should I do during landslide if a landslide or mudslide is occurring or likely to occur? First, if you suspect imminent danger, evacuate immediately. Inform affected neighbors if you can, and contact your public works, fire, or police department. Listen for unusual sounds that might indicate moving debris, such as trees rocking or boulders knocking together. If you are near a stream or a channel, be alert for any sudden increase or decrease in water flow, and notice whether the water changes from clear to muddy. Such changes may mean there is a debris flow activity upstream, so be prepared to move quickly. Be especially alert when driving. Watch for collapsed pavement, mud, fallen rocks, and other indication of possible debris flow. If you are ordered or decide to evacuate, take your animals with you. Consider a precautionary evacuation of large or numerous animals as soon as you are aware of impending danger. In addition, by immediately contact to the authority during disaster like landslide is the best way to do, because in the disaster area, the fire service's first duty is to save people's lives. The police will ensure that the fire and ambulance services can do their job. A natural disaster is an act of nature of such magnitude as to create a catastrophic events like landslides and sinkholes. So it is good to always stay alert, most especially if you hear unusual sounds like falling debris or breaking or collapsing of beams, columns, and slabs, and tremors that makes ground crack. Those are indication for landslide or sinkholes. Risks can include getting caught below the surface of water, especially when rivers and streams rise due to heavy rainfall, may induce disasters like mud flow. Debris, trees, and rocks can also translate to bad condition in hillsides near rivers, so proper evacuation and preparedness is necessary. Roads and highways cross steep terrain. It is important to ensure that the stability of road cuts and road embankments is ensured. Further, it is required to divert flow of water from slopes such that the road is not an obstruction for the water flow, and that the ground water level is not too shallow below the pavement of the road. Natural landslides may also be present and may cause instability of the road itself. After an emergency, familiar scents and landmarks may have changed. Pets can become confused and lost. It is not safe to leave animals behind when evacuating due to landslide or mudflow because animals will not be able to outrun danger. Landslide during severe storms. Stay alert and awake. Many deaths from landslides occur while people are sleeping. Listen to local news stations on a battery-powered radio for warnings of heavy rainfall. Consider leaving if it is safe to do so. What should I do after landslide? Stay away from slide area. There may be danger of additional slides. Check for injured and trapped person near the slide without entering the direct slide area. Direct rescuers to their location. Help a neighbor who may require special assistance, infants, elderly people, and people with disabilities. Elderly people and people with disabilities may require additional assistance. People who care for them or who have large families may need additional assistance in emergency situation. Listen to local radio or television stations for the latest emergency information. Watch for flooding, which may occur after a landslide or debris flow. Floods sometimes follow landslides, and debris flows because they may both be started by the same event. Okay, so knowing that the possibility of landslide may occur in any given time, early preparedness and evacuation is necessary if your home is constructed under a cliff or hillsides. Checking for injured and trapped persons near the slide area is a good move in times of disaster, but it is more better to have an aid or help or assistance of the government rescue team because they have enough training and enough apparatus about how to handle incidents about landslides related and other disaster. Help a neighbor who may require special assistance, infants, elderly people, and people with disabilities brings a good possibilities for any disaster to accomplish as early as possible. And also part of mitigation process which will lessen the number of deaths or casualties because they are more vulnerable to disaster like landslides or sinkholes in times of emergency and rescue operation. Listening to local radio or television stations for the latest emergency information is an ideal way to be prepared in times of disaster because emergency information serves as early warning system. Next, look for and report broken utility lines to appropriate reporting potential hazards. You will get utilities turned off as quickly as possible. preventing further hazard and injury. Check the building foundation, chimney, and surrounding land for damage to foundation. Chimneys or surrounding land may help you assess the safety of the area. Replant damaged ground as soon as possible, since erosion caused by loss of ground cover can lead to flash flooding. Seek the advice of a geotechnical expert for evaluating landslide hazards or designing corrective techniques to reduce landslide risk. A professional will be able to advise you of the best ways to prevent or reduce landslide risk without creating further hazard. Okay, so a variety of factors including earthquakes, storms, fires, and heavy rains can cause landslide. So we must also allow trained professionals to check the building foundation, chimney, and surrounding land for damage. In mudflow areas, build channels or deflection walls that will serve as ground cover and can avoid the danger of flash flooding and landslides. In addition, geotechnical experts has the knowledge to assess and stabilize potential dangerous sites that can be destroyed by landslides. During sinkholes, what to do? If sinkholes are not detected earlier and it appears suddenly, do the following. Find refuge in a stable ground or open area. Next, wait until the structures on and around the sinkhole stops moving. Do not attempt to go back and retrieve your belongings. Wait for the local government announcement when it's safe to go back. Okay, so leave to your current location and find when a safer place can be found to take refuge or protection from danger caused by tremors and cracks caused by sinkholes. Your immediate response and alertness should be necessary to get to an open area, and also if possible must be away from a tree or any infrastructures, the running ground structures or cracks and other overhead objects. A sinkhole on your property can sometimes be extremely dangerous and unexpected, so therefore you must wait for a specific instruction and announcement from the local government when it is safe to go back. After a sinkhole's appearance, what to do? First, stay away from the sinkhole. Monitor the damage on objects. For example, if the crack gets longer or wider, the sinkhole may still be enlarging. Do not throw anything into sinkhole. Anything thrown into may contaminate the groundwater. Secure whatever is left of your properties and relocate to safe grounds, preferably far from this location, because the same bedrock or soil profile may characterize the vicinities of the sinkhole. Okay, so water flowing into a sinkhole can cause it to expand and become more active. Never throw anything into a sinkhole that could possibly contaminate groundwater. The hole should be immediately covered off and clearly marked to protect traffic. Wait until the structures and around the sinkhole stop moving and relocate your properties to a safe ground with strong soil foundation that is far away from sinkhole's vicinity.